everyone, this is Crystal and I'm back with another layout for Hip Kit Club. This is a Friday sketch layout. So I have the sketch for this week right here. It was designed by Jen Scow, and you can see it has lots of fun elements, but there is also a recipe that goes along with this, and that's let butterflies reign supreme amidst layers and labels and splatters galore. So this is what I'll be using to base my layout off of. But before I get started, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my plans for this layout and for the kit in general. So I am not a chronological scrapbooker. I don't normally scrapbook things all at once, even a single event. I don't worry about matching my facing pages or even all of the pages for a particular event or day. I don't worry about them having to match, but I have all of these photos from a single event that happened last week, and I thought this kit was perfect to document these photos. So I think I'm going to, I think these are the photos I'm going to use to document this month's kit, or these are the photos I'm going to use with this month's kit. I'm going to use this month's kit to document these photos. So yeah, I think I'm going to try it and see how it goes and see if I like working with a set group of products for a particular event or time period. So yeah, we're going to try that and see how it goes. I'm not sure which of these I'm going to use for today's spread, but I know I want to start with mixed media. So I have the color kit from June. That is the kit I'm using for these photos, the June kit. And I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to clear all of this away and do some mixed media and then come back and do the actual layout. So I'm going to start by prepping my page with some white gesso, and this is one of the white cardstocks from the cardstock kit. I think in my unboxing video I said it was marshmallow, but I'm not sure that it actually is. Someone told me it might be the Vicki Boutin mixed media paper. It doesn't quite act the same as the marshmallow cardstock from Basil, so I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I don't think it's the marshmallow. So anyway, you'll see here in a bit, it does actually warp quite a bit, and I've never had that trouble with the marshmallow cardstock before, so I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, it works out fine. It took the mixed media beautifully, but yeah, it did warp a bit. So I've put some white gesso on the page, and I'm just using my heat gun to dry that because I'm impatient and I want to get started with the mixed media and I don't want to wait. So I'm just hitting that with the heat gun a bit to dry it, and it doesn't take very long for that to dry. The gesso dries really quickly. So now I have the three what are they called? The Lindy's Stamp Gang, the magical powders, that's the word. The magical powders from this month's kit, and I don't remember what the colors are, but I'll link them down below so that you can see the exact colors that were in this month's kit. So, but you can see there's a pink and there's a yellow and there's a blue. So I'm just using all three. I've added a tiny bit of powder to this little palette that I have. This little plastic palette is actually just from the dollar store. So it's from Dollar Tree. I bought a bunch of them, like maybe 10 of them, and I use them to mix colors in, and then I leave it. These powders will reactivate when you add water to them. So I start color in them and I leave it, and then I will add color later on after it dries to continue using it until it's gone, and then I'll clean it and use it for something else. But it makes it so I can have multiple palettes going at once, and it's not expensive. You know, they were just $1 a piece. So it's a really inexpensive way to have a palette that I don't have to toss. It's not, you know, plastic packaging like I used to use, and then I just have to throw it away, and it was too hard to hold on to and use again. So this allows me to use up all that color that I put down without having to toss it. Okay, so I'm just starting by adding the pink and the yellow to the page, and I'm making sure to do it wet so that it mixes. So yeah, you can see now that I've added the blue, I mixed it in with the pink a little bit to get just a little bit of purple on the page. I don't want it to be a rainbow. I want the colors to be distinct, but I want them to blend a little bit in the center. So you can see I'm spraying some water on the paper itself just to get that movement on the page, to let the color move around a little bit and have that kind of organic feel to it, instead of the being able to see the brush strokes. I don't want you to see the brush strokes. Okay, so the sketch had some splatters, and of course the recipe also called for splatters galore. So I'm just adding some splatters in all 3 colors, and you'll see here in a second I want a little bit of that in-between color, so I mixed just a little bit of the yellow with the pink to get kind of a dark orange-ish color, and I'll add some of those splatters as well. So I don't know if you can tell yet that that the paper is starting to warp, and you can see over to the side I did not get gesso in that that side of the blue where it's darker. That's because I did not cover that spot with gesso. So I missed a spot, and you can absolutely tell the difference between having gesso on your page and not having gesso on your page by looking at that spot right there. And it's fine. The page is totally fine. It didn't warp any more than the rest of it, but it definitely soaked up that color a lot more. So when I lifted up the color from the other parts of the blue, that part stayed dark. I'm not worried about it because it's going to get covered up. So it won't stand out nearly as much as it did without the photos and papers on top. Okay, so these are the photos I've chosen to document today. I actually am only going to end up using 2 of them. There just wasn't enough room on the page to get all 3 and my title in the spot where the sketch calls for the title to be. And I really wanted the title there. So I'm just going to end up using these 2 photos. The sketch had a little banner under the right side, so I pulled these out of the embellishment pack. This is from the Vicki Boutin Color Kaleidoscope collection, the die cut pack. And I'm just going through and pulling out ones that I want to use. So the sketch also called for butterflies, so I'm definitely pulling those out. And there were these really cute clouds. They look kind of mixed media-y, so I decided to pull out a couple of those too, just to I felt like they made the butterflies make a little bit more sense, like there was some kind of sky there and the butterflies were flying. So I just decided to add them. Plus I really like the color. It worked well with the blue that I have on the page. So I need to start working on my layers because I'm not going to be able to add my title or really any of the embellishments without first knowing exactly where those layers are going to sit. So I'm going through the papers and trying to find some that will work with the colors I have in my background, and I've pulled out a few here. So there are lots of layers on the sketch itself, and the recipe also called for layers. So I'm planning to do several layers behind both photos. I just have to figure out exactly how they're going to work. So I decided to use this cloud paper to match the photo on the left. I definitely want to go with a kind of a tone-on-tone, not exactly tone-on-tone, a little bit tone-on-tone kind of color scheme for this page. So I know I want the blues to be on the left-hand side, and then I'll work with the pinks and kind of orangey yellows on the right-hand side. So I really love this teal paper. I'm going to add a little bit of it behind my photo. It's the layer that sits behind the photo mat, and then there'll be another layer behind that that's torn, just like in the sketch. So this one's going to kind of hang off the left-hand side of the page eventually. So I'm looking for that last layer, and I find this piece in the cut apart sheet, and I decide to use that as a layer because it adds a different tone of blue. The rest of the blues in the kit kind of matched the teals that I was already using. So this was a darker blue. It was more kind of navy blue. So I decided to use it just to bring in that different tone. You aren't going to be able to see those words, so they're going to get covered up, but you'll just see that little bit of dark blue peeking out above and below the photo, or the mats around the photo. So I do have to trim down that teal piece just a little bit to make it fit, and I hang it off the edge, and I'll come back and trim that off here in a minute, and then I'm going to glue down my photo. But you'll see here in a bit I peel everything back up because I decide I didn't I didn't like it. It's not that I didn't like it. Everything was looking a little too straight edged to me, so I end up coming back and distressing and then adding some foam behind my photos, but you'll see that here in a minute. Right now I'm going to work on the right hand side. So I find this pink paper from Heidi Swapp's Color Fresh, and I'm just going to cut a little chunk of it to create that longer piece on the right hand side that you can see in the sketch. And then I find another piece from the cut apart sheet, from the Vicki Boutin Color Kaleidoscope cut apart sheet, this kind of distressed pink looking paper or 3x4 card actually. I'm going to cut it out and use it as a layer behind my photo. And then I also found the perfect journaling spot, so I'm going to cut that out as well. And that's going to sit between these two photos and the layers that are behind them. So it's going to sit right in that little open spot, and my title will go just above it. So I'm just trying to work out spacing and cut this down to the right length and height and make sure everything looks balanced and that there's plenty of room for both the photo and the title and journaling in between. And yeah, just making sure that everything's working. It definitely needs something more on that right side. So it's feeling much lighter than the left-hand side. So I'm gonna pick that dark pink kind of, fuchsia, that's the word I was looking for. That fuchsia paper, and I'm gonna cut down a little bit of it to slide behind the right-hand side, and then that's going to add some visual weight and make it feel a little bit more grounded on that side. So I'm just cutting down little strips to slide behind the mat that I have there already. I'm going to put one above and one below, and I'll come back and adhere all of that down here in a minute. I'm working out which part of that 3x4 card I want actually showing behind my photo, because each side looks different. And then I realized I really need some more of that yellow color or that orange color to make that mixed media in the background make a little bit more sense. But I don't want it to be too heavy. So I thought maybe that Simple Stories paper would work, but it was going to be too much. And then I find this polka dot that has a bit of that kind of orange yellow color in it, and I needed something torn at the top of the side anyway to go with the sketch, so I decided to just cut a little chunk of that out and tear the top and bottom just like I did on the right hand side, and I'm gonna glue that to the edge of the page and then add my layers on top. So I think I'm ready to start gluing these down. I'm going to add the little strips first so I can get those lined up perfectly. I just use oh, sorry about that. I just use another sheet of paper to kind of put on the edge of the one that I stuck down, and then I'm able to glue the other one right along that edge, and it looks like it's one big piece behind that pink paper instead of two little strips. Okay, so I just need to trim off all the edges so I can see what I'm actually working with, and then figure out how the rest of the layers are going to go down. I think this is where I decide it's looking a little too clean cut and I need to distress things a bit. Oh, I brought out the T-square ruler because I felt like those photos really needed to be lined up. Like they needed to be in the same line across the page, or it was going to look uneven. It was going to look like things weren't straight. And not that all the layers are perfectly straight, but if the photos are straight across the page, then the whole thing is going to look like it was meant to be that way. So that's why I brought that out. I'll have to bring it out again because I'm about to tear everything up and add foam behind the photos and distress all the edges. So the T-square ruler will make another appearance as I try to fix everything exactly the way I want it. So I'm using just some regular fun foam for the back of my photos. The adhesive that I use doesn't like to stick to this fun foam, so I have to add adhesive to the back of the photo and then stick the foam to it, and then I'll use the adhesive that's on the foam to stick it to the page. So here's where I'm distressing everything. I'm just taking the edge of my scissors. I don't have one of those fancy distressing tools, and I don't actually distress things that often. I generally like a little bit more clean look, but this page definitely called for something a little bit distressed. So if there was ever a time to use distressing, this page was it. So I'm just using the edge of my scissors. It works just fine. You don't really have to have one of those tools to do the distressing. A scissors works just as well. You just have to be a little bit careful not to cut yourself and not to completely destroy the paper when you're using just the edge of the scissors, but it still works fine. So I've distressed everything. I'm going to add some foam behind this photo as well, and then I'll distress the mat around this photo, and then I'll finally be able to adhere everything down and use my T-square ruler again to get that straight. And then next up, I'm going to start working on the title. So This is going to be the first page in this series of pages that I'm creating for this event. So I want the title for this page just to be exactly what it was. So we were at a concert at a local amphitheater in Indianapolis, and the band was Dead & Company, so that's going to be my title. It's real simple, just keeping it very, very simple. So using my Thickers alignment tool so that I can move it around the page and make sure I have the placement exactly right. It works really well with these foam thickers, not so much with the chipboard ones, but with foam thickers, this alignment tool works really well. I just use that very, very top line, so it's just barely attached to the ruler, and then I'm able to move them around and stick them down. I was a little bit worried that company wasn't going to fit in between my layers, but it just did. It overlaps a little bit with the layers, but that doesn't bother me. Yeah, I think it works just fine right there. So I want to use these chipboard numbers that are on the chipboard set from Color Kaleidoscope to do the date. So I wasn't able to do the year because there's only one of each number, but I was able to put the month and the day, so 6/12, and I added a little star between them. There are these little kind of iridescent stars on this chipboard sheet, and I thought that would be the perfect little separating mark between the month and the day. So I add that, and I'm adding it just to the very top of that journaling card that I cut from the cut apart sheet, and that is where I'm going to add my journaling here in a little bit. And then I can start placing everything back down. So I brought the butterflies back on the page and those banners, and just working out exactly where I want to put everything. So you may have noticed I have this very awkward space to the right of my photo that definitely needs something. So I'm trying to figure out what I can put there. I thought maybe I could cut down that third photo and still fit it on the page, but there was no way. It would have looked super awkward there. But then I remembered that I had another butterfly. So I grabbed that and the other cloud, and I decided that that will be the perfect place to add it. And there's still a little bit of an awkward space above there, but I'm going to fill that in with stamps. So I grabbed the stamp set that came in this month's kits, and I'm just going to add a little stamp above there, and then spread a few more stamps out around the page. But I definitely want to use this date, so I'm just going to glue that down. The chipboard definitely needs some additional glue for it to stay on the page where you put it. It tends to kind of fall off otherwise, so I just went ahead and added some glue to that. And I'm also doing the same thing with the banners. These are not the chipboard banners, these are just the die cut banners. So they don't have any adhesive on them, but I'm just using my fine line bottle to glue those down. That's a bottle that comes empty, and you can fill it with whatever glue you want to. Mine is filled with the Scotch Tacky glue. And it works really well to glue down these tiny little bits without getting my roller adhesive all over the place. So I placed those banners where I wanted them, and I'm just cutting off the edges a little bit. I wanted them to run off the page and feel like they continued on. So next I'm going to work on the stamping. So I'm going to grab my black onyx ink, that's VersaFine black onyx ink, and an acrylic block, and decide which of these stamps I want to use. So I decided to go with the one that says Making Memories Together, and it's got a kind of a curve to it, and I'll realize here in just a second that it actually curves right around the little die cut cloud that I had chosen to use on the page. So I grabbed out that stamp, I primed it with a little sand eraser that just helps it pick up the ink evenly, and then I realized that it works perfectly around that cloud. So I decided to glue down the cloud first, and then I can line up that stamp above it just right. So while I have the stamps out, I decided to add a couple more to the page. I'm going to add the one that says, I think it says Go Where You Feel Most Alive. I'm going to add that to the very bottom of my journaling card, again just with some black ink. And then I'll end up adding one more as well there's a little highlight stamp, and I'm going to add it right under my date, right above where I'll add my handwritten journaling. So yeah, again, just priming them. This is the first time I've used these stamps, so I'm using that sand eraser, just lightly going over the stamps to make sure that they stamp well. And you can see they all worked out really, really well the first time. I do end up smudging the one, the Making Memories Together one. I think I do that when I go to cut off the edge of this, yeah, right here. So my left hand totally smudges that stamp. You can see where it's smudged in the final photos, but oh well, it doesn't bother me too much. You can still read the stamp. It's just a little smudgy, but oh well, what are you gonna do? Okay, so I decide that I definitely want these butterflies on the page, but I don't like the white outline around them, so I'm just gonna fussy cut them out, and I didn't make you watch that. But I just cut the white part around, off of around each one, and then I took them to my sewing machine and just added some black stitching down the middle, and then I'm taking the loose ends and just wrapping them into the glue. So I'm only adding glue in the center. I took the loose ends of those threads and kind of wrapped them around to stick into that glue, and that just makes them look like they're tentacles, I guess. I don't know, but I like the way it looked. It added texture to the page and added a little bit more black as well. So I cut that out because my fingers got super sticky and it took me forever to try and get those little ends of threads to tuck in where I wanted them. So I didn't make you watch that either. But there they are, all glued down on the page, and I kind of lifted up the wings so that you could see that they were loose off the page. It added some shadowing and some visual movement, I guess, to the page as well. Okay, so it needed a little bit of something here at the top, so I just cut a little slit into the background cardstock and folded it down, and then I'm adding a little piece of that blue paper behind it, and then I'm gonna kind of stick them down with my tiny attacher as well. And then that's pretty much going to be it. So off camera, I did decide to add some black splatters. I felt like it needed just a little bit more black, so just a few black splatters here and there. You'll see that in the close-ups. And then I also did my journaling, and I just hand wrote that in the journaling spot. So here are the close-ups. I hope you've enjoyed this video and maybe found some inspiration. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below in the comments, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, I do always appreciate the thumbs up. It lets me know that you like what I'm doing and that I should do more of it. And if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all back here soon.